Hi everyone, welcome back. We have another episode of STEM Sundays with Emily. Happy August and happy, actually first day of August. So I hope July went well for you and now a new month, new opportunities, and of course, new STEM activities. So today we have a fun one. We're going to be building a cotton ball launcher. So a fun toy that you can build, reuse again and again, and only using a few materials that I'm sure you guys all have at home. So let's jump right in because I think this activity is going to be very fun for you guys at home. So first we're going to need paper towel rolls or toilet paper rolls, whichever you have at home. So I only have one right now, but if you don't have one or don't have any, feel free to use some construction paper or some sort of thicker paper. I'm actually going to double up or quadruple, it looks like quadruple up a few sheets of paper to mimic the thickness of a paper towel roll. So if you have two of these, great. If you have a longer one, you can cut it in half and that's perfect. And if not, if you just have one or none, feel free to just use paper. For this activity, we'll have to stack them just so it's a little bit thicker, but otherwise, if I'm doing it, you guys can do it, easy as that. So a couple of these or some paper, any option is fine. After that, we're going to use popsicle sticks. I just have these left over from a couple of the activities that we've done before. So one popsicle stick per launcher that you're building. You'll need next some cotton balls. That's what we're going to be launching today, but feel free to use something if you have like a bouncy ball or some sort of small object. Really, you can use anything you'd like, but I figured these are pretty easy to find around the house and won't cause any damage if you launch these too far. Next, you'll need two rubber bands. You're going to want one that is similar to this, not a small one, just because we are going to have it stretch quite a bit to propel our launcher. So we are going to need them to be on the bigger side. They don't have to be too thick, but just long enough so that they stretch probably about this much. Next, some scissors, and lastly, some tape. Feel free to, again, like every activity that we use tape with, feel free to use anything you have around the house, but I've just got this for my desk today. So let's get into building. I'm going to move our cotton balls off to the side for a minute because we're going to be using, at least for me, paper first. So if you have two of these, it's going to be a similar process once I get through the initial piece of cutting down our paper to the right size, but follow along, same idea, just using your paper towel roll. So, like I mentioned, since I don't have two of these, and that is really required to have at least two rolls, I'm going to mimic and build a roll out of paper today. So I have just a few sheets of construction paper that I've taken from my giant stack that we've used in previous projects before. And first what I'm going to do is just trim it down so that it is approximately the same width as our paper towel roll. So this doesn't have to be precise. I'm going to, it looks like it's about halfway across our paper. So I'm just going to stack up my sheets and cut somewhat right down the middle so that we have a smaller stack. So we're gonna go through right here and cut it all the way down so that we have, it's now basically cut in half. This we can save for future projects, get rid of, totally up to you. I'll probably put it back into my stack of paper just so we have some extra sheets if we need it in the future. So now we're going to roll this up so that it mimics the roll. So we're going to go pretty tight here. So one thing that you're going to want to do if you're using the paper is you're going to want to make sure that the roll that you're creating is smaller in diameter. That's the outer dimension here, measurement of the circle. We're going to want to make that smaller than this paper towel roll. And if you have a paper towel roll at home and you're using two, you're going to want to take one and cut it down the middle and shrink it so that it's smaller than the other. So it might even be easier to use paper just because that way you're creating your own size and you can measure. So as you can see, I can fit this inside so that I know it's the right size. You don't have to go any smaller. You definitely don't want to go any bigger. Once you have that rolled up, grab a few pieces of tape. Probably going to need a few here. Just make sure that it stays. Alrighty here. So like I was saying, if you have your two paper towel rolls and that's what you're going to be using instead of the paper, which might be ideal, might not be. I should probably try it to see which one is easier and let you guys know. But if you have the two paper towel rolls, you're going to need to cut one down the middle, just like this, and then basically roll it in on itself so that it becomes smaller in diameter than it originally is. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys without demoing it, but we just want to make sure that we have one roll that is smaller than the other. Easy as that at the end of the day. So now what we're going to do is, now that we have our small roll and our big roll, we're going to take the small roll and cut into it so that we can fit our popsicle stick through. So this might be tough because we've stacked our paper, and definitely if you're doing this option, feel free to grab an adult to do this. Or if you have a hole punch, that would be a great idea too, to just punch right through and then you can stick your popsicle stick right through it. I'm going to try to puncture through the paper with this, with the scissors here. I'm going to separate it a little bit so I get a sharper edge on it. But we're going to want to create two holes, one directly across from the other. So I'm going kind of slowly, but I can hear it going through all the sheets. I probably could have used less sheets, but that's okay, live and learn. So I've got it through, as you can see, through the one side. So now I'm just going to create a hole big enough that we can fit our popsicle stick through. And I think I've got a good size here. But before we do the other one, I'm going to make sure that it fits. It needs to be a little bit bigger, so you might have to do a little bit of guesswork with this. Also, if you don't have any popsicle sticks, I forgot to mention this right at the beginning, feel free to use a pencil or a pen or a marker, something like that. That will work perfectly for this activity too. And it might work really well if you do have a hole punch at home. So I'm working my way through this to make our hole a little bit bigger. I think that's gonna work perfect. Great, so I have it through one side. I'm just gonna repeat that for the other side so that it goes directly from one hole into the other. Okay, so let's get started. This would definitely be easier with a hole punch or if I didn't stack as many sheets. It looked like I used 4 pieces of construction paper. You'd probably be fine using 2 because we've rolled it so tightly, but better to be more sturdy than less sturdy. That's coming from an engineer. So take that as you may, but we're getting there. It's just taking a little bit of time to get this hole on the other side created, but it looks like I'm through. Now we just gotta make it big enough to fit the popsicle stick in. So once we do get this built, this is one of, similar to other activities that we've done, this is one that once you build it, it's very easy to use this later on. So you can play with it, set it off to the side and come right back to it. So you don't have to build it every time. It's not an activity that you will have to create from scratch every single time, but it is fun. And I also forgot to mention, and I'll show you now that I have this kind of done here. So I have my 2 holes created, as you can see, and you want to make sure that they're about 1/2 inch to even 1 inch down from the top. So you don't want them too close to the very top of your roll. We also don't want them down too far. Mine are about 1/2 inch down. So now I've got my popsicle stick and we're going to feed it through. And you want to have about equal distance of the popsicle stick out on either side. So as you can see, mine's a little bit crooked. It's not straight across, but that's okay for this project. If you did want to measure and be precise, I love it. But for this activity, it doesn't have to be exactly straight. Now, this is done. Our inner roll, our smaller roll is done. We can set that right off to the side. Got some paper shavings from my scissor expedition here. So we're gonna set our first roll just off to the side. I'll set it so you guys can see. Now we have our bigger roll. So if you are using 2 of these, this one, you don't have to do any changing of the size. It's good as is. So now what we're going to do is cut 2 small cuts on each side, probably about 1/4 of an inch long and about 1/4 of an inch apart from each other. So I'll fold it down just so you can see. It's very small, but we're going to do that. And again, similar to creating the holes in our smaller roll, you want our 2 cuts to be exactly across from each other. So in total, we'll have 4 cuts, 2 on each side of the roll, but directly across from one another. There's 1 and 2. Okay, so we have one side here, the other side here, and we're going to take our rubber bands and put it right around the little piece that sticks out. So as you can see, my rubber band is right inside there. We're going to do that on both sides. And then we're going to take some tape and tape this shut so that the rubber band can escape. So I'm going to get 2 pieces of tape and tape that closed, just right over the top. I'm going to actually double up my tape just to be safe. We don't want our rubber bands to escape and come out of the top because they are the main piece of our launcher. If we didn't have the rubber bands, we would not be having a launcher. So one more, just to make sure that these rubber bands don't fly out. Okay, perfect. So now we have our rubber bands on the outside of our roll. Now what we're going to do is take the roll with the rubber bands, which is the bigger roll, and place it over top, just like this, over top of the smaller roll with our pencil or popsicle stick down here. And now we're going to take one rubber band and put it around the popsicle stick, and the same thing with the other. There we go. Okay, so there we go. So you want to make sure the rubber bands are aligned on the side so they can be easily pulled over the popsicle stick, or if you're using a pencil, over the pencil. Now what we're going to do is launch. So we're going to take a cotton ball and you're going to stick it. See how you can see our outer roll and our inner roll here? We're going to place it right on the middle inner roll. So hopefully you've created a roll that can hold this. Hopefully it's not too big, but I think anything will work as long as you can rest that cotton ball right there. And now to explain how our launcher is going to work, we're going to take our popsicle stick, and it might be easier if you actually reach inside to grab your popsicle stick, but you can also grab it from the outside as well. You're going to pull back. So if you see from the side, I'm just pulling down so that our cotton ball is escaping inside the larger roll, and you're going to release the popsicle stick side and the cotton ball launches out just like that. So the way that this works is a topic we've actually covered before in another activity. It all goes back to energy. So inside of these rubber bands, there's energy that's stored when we pull back. So as we pull back on our popsicle stick, the rubber bands stretch, and when they do that, they are storing potential energy. So we've talked about this when we had our little ball maze that we built. Same idea, whether it's in a rubber band or a spring, or if you're changing the location of something from down on the ground to up in the sky, a change in elevation, or a change in something that is elastic. If you're elongating something that is a little bit spring-like, exactly like a rubber band, it stores energy. So we're storing energy that is going to be able to be used to propel something or do some sort of activity. So as we're storing the energy, as soon as we release that, that energy is escaping from the rubber band and allows us to launch out. So let's do it one more time. I've got a few of our cotton balls here we can use. And it might be fun to see how high you can launch them or how far you can launch them. If you have siblings or cousins or family or neighbors, maybe do this as an activity. That one didn't work so well. That was a bigger cotton ball, I think, than didn't really go into the bigger one, but let's try this one more time. I'll try and launch it right at you guys. So this is a fun little activity that, as you can see, is built just from things around your house. Pretty easy to build and something that you can use again and again. And again, it's all possible because of the energy from our rubber bands. So that's our activity for today. I hope you have fun launching your cotton balls wherever you may do it. And next week, we're going to be doing something involving strawberries. So that's one of my favorite summer fruits, which is why I picked this activity. But we're going to be learning about a really cool activity that I'd never heard of and discovered this year, but it involves strawberries. So get ready to maybe feast on some strawberries after activity next week. But in the meantime, have a great week, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye, everyone.